Hi, I'm Nigel Atherton from What Digital Camera Magazine.
And I'm Matt Golofczynski from What Digital Camera Magazine.
And we're looking today at the Pentax K20D
and the Samsung GX20.
Pentax K20D sports a 14.6 megapixel APS-C size CMOS sensor. It has a 2.7 inch LCD screen with live view. It has anti-shake, it has dust reduction, it has 72 points of sealing against moisture and dust. Has pretty much everything that you would want on a digital SLR in one body.
The Samsung GX20 has a 14.6 megapixel APS-C type CMOS sensor. It has a 2.7 inch LCD screen with live view, anti-shake, anti-dust, and 72 seals to guard against water and dust.
Now, if these cameras sound similar, it's because they are. In fact, they're virtually identical. That's because Pentax and Samsung have been collaborating on producing digital SLRs together. And in fact, it's the perfect marriage between Pentax's optical and mechanical photography heritage and Samsung's expertise in the field of electronics. Both manufacturers are weak in the strengths of the other manufacturer. So by coming together, they seem to have all bases covered. But it does mean that they're both bringing out cameras which are, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same.
The sensor itself has been developed by both Samsung and Pentax and manufactured by Samsung, and it's the first time that their own sensor has been used in their models.
A 14.6 megapixel sensor is the highest resolution sensor that you can get in any digital SLR for under £5,000, which is the price of the Canon EOS 1DS Mark III. And yet you can buy either of these cameras for under £800, which from a resolution point of view makes them very good value.
So both cameras appear very similar, but there are a few differences.
So what are these differences then, Matt?
Well, mainly the differences come with the style of the camera. You've got the top of the pop-up flash just here. It's a little bit more smooth and rounded on the Pentax than it is on the Samsung. Samsung's a little bit more angular. The other differences mainly come with the styling and the typeface that Samsung have chosen over Pentax for labelling the buttons.
The menus are slightly different too, aren't they? The interface and fonts and colours used in the menus are slightly different, and also the buttons on the back. I think if you look, you can see that they're bigger recessed buttons on the Samsung, and they're little raised buttons on the Pentax.
Yeah.
But really, we are clutching at straws to find that many differences, aren't we? Really. I find the Pentax menu is not quite as refined as the Samsung one. I think the Samsung is easier to read. It looks a bit more refined.
Yeah, it's styled a bit better. Definitely.
It is, for sure. And although we can't be sure, there's a suspicion that both lenses, although stylistically different, possibly come out of the same factory.
Yeah.
The same focal length range, the same specification, and basically, apart from the sort of rubbery bits and the general aesthetics, they're much the same.
They feel the same. They sound the same as well when they're focusing. So
equally noisy.
Equally noisy, yeah.
Now, the standout features of the camera. Obviously, it has all the same exposure modes as every other digital SLR, but the Pentax have a couple that are unique to themselves, don't they?
Yeah, there's a sensitivity value mode which works with the camera's ISO, and also there's an aperture and a TAV. It's called. It's sensitivity and aperture priority, which combines the two.
Right. So this mode, you select the aperture and shutter speed that you want, and then the camera adjust the ISO to provide a good exposure at those settings.
Yeah.
That's right. There's also, I see there's a mode on there which is a custom function where you can customise that to whatever mode you want it to do. Another thing about the camera, I think, like the K200 as well, has this the main functions like the ISO, the white balance that you want to change more frequently. There are no buttons for these on the outside of the camera. You have to go into the FN button, the function button on the back to press that, and there you'll find a circular dial with ISO on the right. Go back to that. There you go. It's all very fiddly. Auto white balance, or the white balance mode on the left, the drive mode at the top, and the flash mode down below. And I think a camera at this level, I'd prefer to see separate buttons. If you want to change the ISO, you have to press a lot of buttons to get there.
Yeah.
You have to press the function button and then the right hand button and then scroll down to the ISO you want, and then press OK. And that can be 7 or 8 button pushes.
Yeah, it's much the same with the GX20. You press the function button to get into the menu where you can change your white balance, your flash, your sensitivity and such, just like that. So they work the same, but because of the styling of the menu system, the graphic user interface, it's a much more pleasant shooting experience with the GX20.
I think one thing that's slightly better on the Samsung as well is that when you are using the function button, if you want to change more than one thing, such as the ISO and the white balance, with the Pentax, you've actually got to go back out of the function button and then start all over again. Whereas with the Samsung, once you've selected the ISO, you press OK, it then takes you back to the menu, you can then change something else.
Yeah.
I mean, all these similarities beg the question is that why you would choose any one camera over the other, because they are so similar. I think really it comes down to the demographics of the buyer. I think one thing, I think if you're an older user like myself, I think the Pentax name is a more prestigious name than the Samsung. I think people of a certain age perhaps still associate Samsung with microwaves and that sort of thing. I think whichever camera you choose, you're getting a lot of camera for the money. They pretty much have everything you'd want on a camera, don't they?
Definitely. If you're looking at features, resolution for this kind of money, it would have been unheard of last year, I would imagine. So with image quality as well, I think both cameras put in quite an equal performance.
There's a tendency for them to underexpose a little bit, isn't there? I think they're quite easily fooled, the meters generally.
Yeah.
And I find images, JPEG is a little bit on the flat side at the default settings, although of course you can customise them in the menu. If you go into the menu, you can change all those parameters yourself, and you've got various colour modes that you can select as well.
It does have the underexposure does have the advantage of keeping in highlights as well, which would otherwise blow.
Yeah.
Noise control is also very good, even up to the maximum 6400. Noise is quite minimal, really.
It's probably also worth mentioning the quite a high degree of customisation. I said that you can customise, you can set the sharpening and the colour and those sorts of things, and contrast in the camera. There's also, I think these are pretty much the only cameras, or at least they were, I think someone else has started doing that now, but you can actually post-process your raw pictures in camera.
Yeah, you've got these digital filters on the Samsung where you can apply filters, I think, alongside the image rather than straight on the image, so it doesn't actually affect the original file.
And any enhancements you make to your raw pictures save as a separate JPEG and still maintain your raw file, don't they?
Yeah.
Which is quite useful. I mean, there are times when maybe you might want to shoot raw, but you might want to process the JPEG in camera for immediately printing, for example. I think really this camera has every conceivable toy that you would want. It has anti-shake, it has anti-dust, it has live view, and there are a couple of nice touches that you don't find anywhere else except on the Pentax and Samsung. For example, the RAW button, which is pretty handy. It means you can leave it in JPEG mode, and then when you press the button you can just shoot a raw picture as and when you see an interesting picture that you want to get a better quality result on, and you can actually customise that so that you can set it for either any combination of JPEG and RAW. Matt, what do you think are the best features of the cameras?
Well, I wouldn't say there's only one key thing, but I think considering like the features that you're getting in a really strong and weatherproof body as well. You've got the seals in 72 places, so not only do you get a lot for your money, but you get a really nice, robust package as well.
So the scoring, I think overall we gave the camera, they get very, very close because they are so similar.
Yeah.
But we gave the Pentax 88% and the Samsung 89%, just because it's slightly more refined. We think the buttons are a little bit more professionally finished. You've got a slightly better and easier to view menu interface.
Yeah.
It's you get a 2-year warranty instead of 1, and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So on all those counts, there's a 1% mark difference between them, but virtually they're almost identical. So whichever one you buy, you should be very happy with it.